Attaching the casters is the next segment of the tutorial, as well as putting on the front and back flaps of the flight bag. But we're going to start with attaching the casters. So you've already determined the bottom of your flight bag, and in this video clip you're seeing me attach those casters to the bottom of my flight bag, and I pre-marked the holes you just saw there. I'm using really long prongs, brads with long prongs on it, and you want that because you want to have enough of the prong to secure the casters onto the bottom of your bag. And remember, you want to space them wide enough so that the wheels do not touch each other as they're rotating. I'm just using my piercing tool here to make sure that I'm piercing all the way through the KRAFTEX and the chipboard bottom inside of the bag. What you can do is carefully put your hand inside the bag to help guide your piercing tool through there. But you definitely want to make sure you're all the way through so you don't bend the prongs of your brads. So then I'm inserting the brad prongs through. So the brad goes through the caster base and then through the bag. And again, you want to be careful so that you don't poke yourself, and take your time. It took me a couple of attempts, even the second time around, to make sure that the prong doesn't get bent when it goes through, because you don't want that to break off. You'll have to get a new brad to do so. So I know I'm a little bit off camera, but I am showing you what it looks like once you have attached your casters. So that's what you want to do, and you want to put all four all the way around. And then on the inside of the bag, you want to make sure that you spread out the prong so that it's nice and flat on the bottom. And for the finishing part on the inside of the bag, so you don't see the prong, you just want to make sure you have another piece of chipboard that is the width and length of your base of your bag. You can use a heavyweight cardstock to become the liner. Basically, it becomes the liner for the bottom of your bag. Or again, you can use a piece of your coordinating designer paper for the liner as well. So once again, this is just showing you how to put the brads into the caster base and through your bottom of your flight bag. So just finishing up attaching the casters here, and in a minute you'll see all four casters have been attached to the bottom of the flight bag, and then you'll also see a little short clip of what the inside of the flight bag base looks like, and it further explains how you want to cover up those brad prongs and making sure that they're nice and flat. You can go ahead and adjust a little bit before you flatten out your prongs, a little bit of the caster bases. If they're crooked or off-centered, you have a little flexibility before you do that. And then I do want to show you that is what it looks like. I know that was really quick, but that is what it looks like when you have your prongs attached to the bottom on the inside. And as you can see, the bag swivels just fine. It's really important to make sure that your casters are spaced appropriately so your bag doesn't tip over when you put the album in, and this one does. So now we're going to talk about the front and back pockets. So for the front and back pockets, you want to make sure that you allow for your matting on the front, and if you're going to do some matting on the back, and I'll show you that a little later in the video. But for this tutorial, I'm using Cartabella's Metropolitan Girl. It's a really fun, hip kind of designer paper by Cartabella. I think it'd make a fun flight bag. It could make a makeup bag or cosmetic bag, however you wish to do it, if you do have the Metropolitan Grill or if you do purchase it. So this is what I'm going to be using throughout the tutorial for the matting of the front of the bag, and then also for the mini album that you'll see a little later. My black coordinating cardstock is going to be Coordinations Premium Cardstock, 80-pound weight. It's a really good weight for this pocket. I don't know if Joann's sells this brand anymore. I know they're changing out their paper collection, but I liked it. I like it because it's textured. But you can use any heavyweight cardstock that you want to use for your front and back pockets. You will see later that I decided to do a two-tone pocket in which the base is black, but the flaps are a gray color. So let's go ahead and talk about the pockets. And we're going to start with the front pocket. The way I'm going to do this particular flight bag is I'm going to use two pieces. The reason why is I don't have a whole lot of this paper and I want to save some of it for the mini album. But you can choose to use a whole piece of paper. It really doesn't matter if you use two pieces of paper because the pocket's going to cover it. So here I'm showing you how to fold the gusset for the bottom of the front pocket. You just want to have a valley there, and then you want to have a tab in the back for gluing. And then I'm just checking for placement. Burnish those score lines really well. You are using, or you may use a heavier weight cardstock, and then round your corners. And then you're going to put your brad placement same distance as the one you see on the left, and I was using a 1/2-inch corner rounder. So I'm just punching my hole, and I am using the long prong brads for the pockets as well, and you want to move those brad prongs away from the outer edges. I decided to use my Tim Holtz buckles, and I used them in the more metal look, not the bronze or the brass. Round the bottom of your flap for your front pocket, and then check for placement. Once you're happy with that and you're looking for that rounded part of the flap, you want to take your KRAFTEX strap, and I haven't attached my mats yet. I just want to double check. And a little piece of KRAFTEX that's sticking up there, I'm gonna remove it in a minute. You are going to glue on your bottom pocket on 3 sides. You're going to add your buckle to wherever you want your buckle to land, but centered on the pocket. And you'll take that, if you're looking at the instructions, you'll take that little piece of KRAFTEX and you'll cover that over the brad, the eye hole in the buckle if you're using the Tim Holtz buckle or the buckle that you choose, and then you're going to insert your brad over that, and that just gives it a more finished look. You saw that I used my ankle punch for the ends of my strap, but I actually ended up changing them to match the rounded finished edge that I am going to be doing for the back pocket. Space your holes accordingly. I used a 3/4 of an inch in between each one, and that seemed to work perfect for me, where I had the appropriate amount of pressure on that flap to close sort of flat. You do want to keep the rounded part of the pocket flap. And then I'm just checking to make sure they're going to fit just fine. Find the center of your pocket flap, and you want to add a little bit of adhesive on your KRAFTEX. You can use liquid, you can use hot glue, you can use glassy accents or whatever works for you. You just want to make sure it's a real strong adhesive so that the KRAFTEX will stick to the cardstock. And it looks like I got my glue tip a little stuck, so here we go. And just a little bit, not a lot. and you want to place it on that center. So you want to center the strap on the center mark that you put on your flap, making sure that everything is pressed down nice and well. And then what we're going to do is put our mats down, put the bottom part of the pocket down, and then we're going to adhere the flap. So if you want to have 2 pockets in the front, I'm going to show you how you do that by adding adhesive. And you can see here that I am just checking. I already have my mats down, I already glued my pocket down, and then you're going to put adhesive about 1 inch or 1.5 inches on either side of the pocket flap. And I goofed a little bit and it went a little bit too far. If you do the same thing I do, just wipe it off. But about 1 inch or 1.5 inches on the same side that you put the strap. And then you're going to flip the whole thing over the flap, and you're going to insert it carefully so that you don't get glue on your designer paper. You're going to slide that into the pocket. And what essentially you're going to do after you make a few adjustments is you're going to be able to have 2 pockets. And that's what I'm doing right here. I'm just checking my adjustments and making sure that I am straight. So you just want to be really careful, make sure everything is aligned up really well. The flap to the sides of your pocket, and then the flap and to the width and centered perfectly with your flight bag. And if you get a little messy with your glue, you can just clean that. You can just clean that up, which I will do before the project gets finished. So then I'm folding the flap over just to get the right kind of curve on the pocket. Now, if you want a flat flap, not a curve, then just press it down. And then that way you'll have a flat pocket. I like the curved pocket because it adds a little dimension to the front and back of the flight bag, but you can choose to do something differently if you like. And then go ahead and buckle it up. Make sure you don't need to add any more holes for your buckle. And if you're satisfied with that, then you are done with the front of your pocket. Now let's move over to the back pocket. The back pocket is essentially put together the same way as the front pocket, except for the original design, I only have 1 pocket. I did not do a double pocket. If you want to do a double pocket, you can certainly follow the same steps that you did with the front pocket. I've already added my brads. I've burnished my score lines to make my gusset. I made a marker where I'm going to put my brad, and there you see that I have the small piece of KRAFTEX just to cover up the hole on the buckle. And how I determined where I'm going to place my buckle is I slid my flap in, and I just eyeballed what I wanted to see as far as where the flap laid, and then I put my mark there. So that's how I got the placement for my buckle. You can choose to do something differently, but that seems to work. So I'm going to punch a hole in the pocket where I put my little mark. I'm going to insert my buckle, and then what I'm going to do is make sure that the prongs are nice and flat on the back side. And then a little trick that I learned was to cut a piece of scrapbook paper, something thin, not too thick, or copy paper, and I just use regular copy paper. I punched a circle, and then I applied some glue on that, and I covered up those prongs. That way anything that goes in the pocket is not going to be caught up in the prongs. And I didn't tell you this step with the front pocket, but you can certainly do it with the front pocket. And you can do that even though the pocket's been adhered. You just slide your hand in there with your circle and then put the circle over the prong in the front pocket. You just want to make sure that your circle that you punched out has adhesive all the way around it. So there now, nothing will get caught up in this pocket because you've done this step. Okay, so when you're happy with that, the next step is to take your flap and gently round the paper over, and we're replicating that rounded look like we did in the front of the bag. And then you're going to attach your strap. Now you don't have to attach the strap all the way to the top edge like we did with the front pocket. You can attach the strap just beyond the rounded portion of your flap, and you'll see that in just a minute. I'm just checking here for placement. And that top part of your flight bag, that's where you can choose to add your designer paper or a liner paper. And like I said before, I did choose to do a liner paper after I did this video clip, and you'll see that with the finished project. So here's my strap. Again, I rounded the end. I've already punched my holes, and I'm ready to attach it to my flap. You just need a little bit of adhesive, and I'm just going beyond that rounded part in the center. So you just want to center that and then check your placement. And that's the placement that I want. And so now you can attach your pocket bottom. You want to trim the top ends a little bit. Add adhesive. Make sure you're adding adhesive to the bottom portion of your pocket as well. I did forget, but you'll see that I added the glue after the fact. I did place some hot glue on those corners just to make sure those brads, because they're metal, stay put on the KRAFTEX and the chipboard. And I can't stress enough how much the binder clips were helpful in this project. It's like having a third hand, and there I am applying the glue on the bottom. Just making sure that I don't leave any spaces anywhere where there isn't any glue. You really want this pocket to stick onto your flight bag. So if you want to have two pockets in the back, you would just apply the adhesive the same way you would apply the adhesive, the way you did for the front pocket. If you want a short pocket, second pocket, then you would apply glue only to the 3 outer edges. But I decided not to, so I'm applying the glue on the entire back end of my flap. I said pocket before, but 3 sides of the flap will get you a shallower pocket. And so you want to just slide it in. Make sure you're lined up. Make sure your side edges are lined up with your flight bag and the chipboard of your flight bag. And use binder clips when appropriate. And this finishes off the flight bag. You have your casters on, you have your pockets on, and you have your handle on. And now it's time to move on to the album.